Welcome to the Voices for Voices TV show and podcast. Voices for Voices is the #1 ranked podcast and TV show where people turn to for expert mental health, recovery, and career advancement intelligence. Our Voices for Voices TV show and podcast is all about teaching you insanely actionable techniques to help you prosper, grow your self-worth, and your personal brand. So if you are a high achiever or someone who wants more out of life, whether mentally, physically, or spiritually, why don't you make sure to subscribe to our podcast and TV show right now. As you can see, Voices for Voices TV show and podcast publishes episodes that focus on case studies, real-life examples, actionable tips, and in the trenches reports and interviews from subscribers just like you. That sounds like something that could help you personally or professionally. Then why don't you make sure to join us by subscribing? And so you probably see a subscribe button somewhere close to where you're viewing this or listening to this TV show and podcast. Why don't you join us? We do have a pretty monumental goal to help 3 billion people over the course of my lifetime and beyond. So any help is appreciated. And we also are a 501c3 nonprofit. So every cent that you or somebody you know is able to donate, we would love to have you join us on our journey to help people here in Summit County, Northeast Ohio, across the United States, and even across the world. So today's episode, our guest comes to us through let's go, one of my former students. We just finished up a capstone marketing course, and through the work that he was doing, the transparency of sharing stories, not only in real life, professionally, and business, but also sharing some of his experiences as a family member, as a brother, to Ben, and Ben is Tommy. So Tommy was my student. Tommy Zirzow was my student, and as I learned more about Tommy and Ben, as really Tommy learned about me and my active recovery, which if you want to check that out on episode 106, we go through my active recovery journey that I'm on. And so with having conversations before class and after class with Tommy, wanted to really have an opportunity to interview him and or his father, Bill, for our TV show and podcast. And so today we're very grateful to have in studio my former student, Tommy Zirzow's dad, Mr. Bill Zirzow. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Justin. I want to say it's a real blessing to come here, and obviously you touched the heart of our family as Tommy would come home and share your story and what you were doing. And again, I think there's a lot more for me to learn, but from what I understand, as I share, what's impacted our family, it means a lot to us. And then this whole journey has been, both a big struggle and at the same time a blessing that, especially in humility and to open our hearts to others that are, struggling with some of the same stuff. So I look forward to sharing this time with you and sharing our story, I guess, if it hopefully helps somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit about your background. So you're a full-blown, since 1992, businessman. It started with your wife, Cindy, an organization called Town Money Saver. Can you just talk maybe a little bit about how that came about?
Yeah, so I graduated from Cleveland State University, and in communications degree, actually. And we were going to get married, and I had to find a job. And a guy said, you should try sales. I didn't like salespeople. I didn't want to be in sales. That's all I've done my whole life, so you never know. You got to open your heart up to your gifts, you know. And so really I worked for a few different companies, and we eventually lived in Grafton, Ohio. And some of the local businesses said, you should try something just local here, you know, to help. And in fact, me and my wife met playing in a band, so I was still kind of in a band at the time. Wasn't really my interest, but to do a business. But within a few months, it blew away anything I had seen. So I took some of the elements of the other places I worked, and from there on, you know, it's 31 years later. So we've been really blessed with the success of that business. So.
Yeah, it's awesome, and you also have a passion for Christ, and that I think with craziness going on in the world, I think that is a good thing for somebody who either is a follower, believer, or is not. And can you maybe talk a little bit how that has maybe helped your mind and spiritually as you've kind of gone through the process with starting and running Town Money Saver, but then also starting a family? Oh,
no, definitely. Thanks. First of all, I was cradle Catholic, born Catholic, you know, attended Mass, sacraments, and probably like a lot just showed up, you know. I really wasn't that invested. And then around 07, 08, we had 4 children. Our marriage was basically over. You know, we were both kind of like, we're done. And like my wife, she had gone to rehab. In fact, St. Gregory Retreat Center in Iowa, give them a little plug. And she said they shared there how we like to be driving. And, you know, Christ is in the back, like, hey, I can take that for you. And you're like, no, I got it. Until you crash. And then you're like, all right, Christ, I'll let you take over. So I know the moment. I mean, I sat there, I said, Lord, something's got to give. I'm not sure what to do. You know, it's a wreck. A lot of drinking, a lot of fighting, you know, just behavior you didn't want in a family life. And it wasn't even a Bible. It was some Catholic book I had laying around. I remember praying, opening it, and the first sentence was, you know, Satan's #1 goal is to destroy the family. And that's when it really hit. That's when I know it was grace and the Holy Spirit's like, all right, I don't want this to happen. So it took a long time. It's still a work in progress, so there's a long way to go. But now I was born, I think, with the virtues of our faith. You know, I was in that first sales job being trained. These guys are kind of BSing people and stuff, and I knew, like, this isn't right. You know, so I know it was inside me, but that really brought it out. You know, that incident. And then my turning to Christ, all right, I got to put you in charge. You got to be #1. This isn't, obviously I was, you know, submitting to some of the false gods of money. We had a very successful, the business was really rolling at that time, pleasure, you know, honor, stuff like that. So, and really one of the first things was a guy called from church and said, would you start to do adoration, which I didn't even know what it was. And they started a little men's group. This was back in 09. And I remember I was at the moment of just saying yes to anything with the faith. So that really, in fact, this morning I was at Mass, and we have a little Cursillo men's group right after Mass. So I'm so blessed, and so much fruit has come from this journey of doing, and especially as we talk, you know, we've had some really bad, nothing worse, I think, than what we've experienced in our life. So if it wasn't for that, I definitely wouldn't be here talking to you, that's for sure. So no, and then to the business, our motto is serve others, you win. I preach all the time, if you want to make a lot of money, it can't be about the money. You know, it's got to be about the relationship. It's got to be about, I mean, I've really just had a new franchisee. We just opened a brand new North Canton right down the street from you. Well, right in Walsh University there. And the girl there really appreciated it. I said, you know, it's got to be a ministry. You know, it's got to be something you go out and you're looking to be present and to be available if you can, and in any way lift other people up. So, and if we get to it, my son, obviously, as I don't know if I'm spilling the beans talking about my son that we've lost, but there's a phenomenal story that someone posted on Facebook that kind of ties some of this together. But anyway, I'll stop there.
Yeah, no, great transition. So one of your sons, Ben, one of his favorite quotes from St. Francis of Assisi, is start by doing what's necessary, then do what's possible, and suddenly you are doing the impossible. Can you talk to maybe that quote, and just about Ben in general, to share with our viewers, our listeners, or if they're checking out our transcript, that everybody makes an impact in the world, and how even with a unfortunate life cut short, with his legacy is continuing to hopefully help and inspire others.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, we were waiting for the headstone, but on his we put a little marker there, and we said, happiest, making others happy. And if I had to kind of put it in the fewest words, Ben was just so selfless. I mean, he was the life of the party, which allowed us to a fault. You mix in alcohol and other stuff, and you get some mental. Ben definitely, I think was bipolar. I don't know that we've formally diagnosed. Well, he was, because he was on different medications. Mm-hmm. So we had some mental health, a lot in the family. We have a lot of that, and so in spite of that, I mean, he really was amazingly. When he did something and put his heart to it, very successful. And maybe I could best sum it up by I'll share this little story. So
Please.
One of our greatest gifts after we lost Ben, which was August 15th, if you see the Assumption, 22, it was like around Thanksgiving, this lady who Ben was selling. He was at the time selling a system called Clover. It's like a POS system, point of purchase, type system. Mm-hmm. And she was actually looking to get his blessing on a book she was writing, that the first 3 chapters were going to be about him and how he changed her life. And so it was unbelievable. And she then shared how utterly destroyed she was to find out he had passed, just a few months earlier. But she went on to share the beginning of part of a chapter or something like that. And it basically was Ben making the sales call, and she didn't want to be bothered. She was hoping he would go away, and he didn't go away. And apparently got in there, and basically she shared how he quickly noticed that she was going through something, that she was having a hard time. And I think especially in a relationship or so, I can't remember all the exact words. But the part that was just really amazing, and I'm so proud of, and I think, you try to do this and it's hard, but he really at that point died to himself, put her first, and apparently really went on to spend a lot more time with her and lifted her up, shared a lot of and must have got her into writing. And with beautiful writing. I mean, what she did write in there, you can tell it was that she should be an author. Mm-hmm. And for sake of time, I won't go through the whole, but that was the essence of it, was that he put her first in that moment. Even though he was trying to sell her, she's a little annoyed, and yet he was able to recognize she was struggling and took the time to really be present for her, and then obviously did something that really changed her. And she claimed it completely changed her life, and she was doing what she was because of Ben. So, and it goes hand in hand. One other time he said, Dad, I'm having because then we selling that town Money Saver for a bit, unfortunately during the middle of COVID, so that probably contributed to this whole thing. But he said, I was having a really hard time, so I decided yesterday when I went out, I just thought each person I meet, I want to lift their day up. I don't care whether I sell anything, whatever happens. He said he had one of the best sales days, so he realized it to the point earlier, if you focus on the relationship and other people, the things you need, the monies, the manna will come, so to speak. So Ben really, and he was such a quick-witted, funny, good listener, and and I'm sure this is very common with the bipolar and that. My daughter's the same way. They're class presidents, homecoming king and queens, life of the party, all this going on, and then you've got this struggle over here, this affliction, that they got to deal with. So, but yeah. So anyway,
that's great, and I think, especially for myself and going through my mental health journey, that a conversation I had with one of my counselors or therapists, and we were just talking about all the different things that I wanted to do, and I had all these things lined up, and I felt like I was just like all over the place, and that there wasn't a method to the madness. And my counselor told me, he said that if you want to, basically corral that, get a calendar and write those down and scheduling. And so I tried that a little bit, and for whatever reason I was falling off the horse. But then our conversation quickly turned because I was starting to, I think I was having a down week or two, and he mentioned, he said, you know that there are a lot of surgeons and lawyers and very prominent, well-to-do people that are doing great things that have some type of a mental health challenge, whether it is that ADHD. And he went on to tell me, he said, would you like to have a surgeon that their mind is a little bit all over the place, but then when that surgery has happened, is super hyper focused on that particular surgery? Or do you want somebody the opposite? And he went on to tell me that that there's a lot of people that are undiagnosed for whatever reason. And I think that plays a little bit into what you're talking about, Ben and your daughter, that yeah, there might have been things here and there and the like, but once they actually focused on whatever that thing was, that he rose and she rose above that to actually have a greater impact on that person by just being present and not being so wrapped up in the sale. So I just wanted to share a little bit about me, and so that made me feel a little bit better when I'm having down days, that okay, we know nobody's perfect, but the things that we're doing, we're trying to do the best that we can. And if we just do a little bit at a time and we just kind of continue on the path that we think, and through our faith and through our mentors and the people we surround ourselves with, that makes things a little bit easier when we get to those tough points. So like, oh my gosh, I haven't had a sale in a week or 2 weeks.
Yep.
And the next thing you know, boom, the biggest sale of the career may happen.
Right, yeah. I can't help but have a few thoughts as you're sharing that.
Please do.
Mother Teresa's a big hero of mine, and I think she talks about, we don't have to go out and save the world. We just got to help that person next to us. And I think our culture is so, and this is one of the things that hurts me the most with Ben, and partly, I would run around the house saying, no such thing as best. You can always do better, and you got it. Second best is not an option. I have all these motivational things I'm trying to do, but that can also put an incredible mental burden on somebody if you're not, if you don't have that groundedness in that you're a son, a daughter of Christ. To me, that's your first identity. All this other stuff's kind of second. Husband, father, friends, things like that, and then that stuff. We got to eat, we got to pay our bills, so you do got to go out and do that. The other thing that ties in, again, we could talk for hours, so I'm trying to cut short some of my thoughts here, but I was starting to share with you earlier, we host this Sober Burning Man, and it's AA group, it's all people recovering addicts, and it's my favorite group I'm ever around, even more than church, to be honest with you. I mean, and I was thinking, I don't know how to best explain it, and I thought, I think what it is that we're really called to lean on one another. These people, to me, are so broken. They got so many to stories, worse than ours, and yet they're standing up. I mean, they're lifted up, and they're leaning each other and lifting one another up. And to your point, when you're feeling that we, oh, I didn't make the sale, or you're feeling that insecurity, or that I'm not accomplishing, and I'm around those people, it's almost like I feel that love of Christ, like I don't have to do anything. I can just rest in his arms, just being present, just being, a child of Christ is all I need to do. And so I think it's all those things you're wrestling, because trust me, I got to leave here and I'll have something at work I got to deal with, and I'll be like praying, please, Lord, give me the right stuff. And we've gone, even the business, and we've been really, we were half the size we were before COVID. And, if I could, I'll share, the biggest thing for me to even stand here and talk about. A year ago, I couldn't do this because I would be emotional wreck. And I think the journey I'm growing on, and I think this will relate, it's, do I really believe? Do I really believe in the resurrection? Do I believe in the conquering of death? Do I believe in eternal life? I'm going to be reunited with Ben. You know, and as Catholics, we don't have that kind of like guaranteed, oh, I'm saved, I'm there. You know, that was one of the biggest, that's the hardest thing for me and my wife when this happened is he okay? We just wanted God to come and say, he's good, he's with me. And, sorry, so anyway.
Okay. Take your time.
So what's happened is over the year and a half, it's like taking a little, well, your whole life, right? I think of that story of the beggar on the rich guys. I can't remember, I don't have all the names down from the scripture, but, you know, he goes to hell, and he's like, hey, I got to warn my brothers. And they're like, if they didn't get it, too bad. You know, we got Moses, you had all these prophets, so they didn't figure it out. And I couldn't help it. I felt this coming on me with the Holy Spirit, like, I got all these, the story I just shared with you. I had so many beautiful stories. Dreams, you know, the Tommy and Zeke, if you ever shared that one dream, they had 2 independent dreams, and the same exact event happened with Ben in the dream. I mean, just a couple weeks ago, during the mission trip during Easter, one of my franchisees called me to say during Father Larry Richards' talk on Calvary, which is, if you ever heard it, it's pretty intense, it came to him that he had to call me and say that he knew Ben was okay in heaven with God. And I was like, what? Like, I don't even talk to him. It's one of my 30-some franchises, one of them. Great guy. And those things, you know, especially going right through the Easter season that we just are, and, you know, it's that belief and that faith. And I've gotten so much joy now and comfort. And even my spiritual director said, you know, Ben's okay. He's with God. You're a father. You're a husband. You got a business. You got employees that are depending on you. And I've really tried to focus on that. And so we're actually in the middle. I'll share this. I don't know if I'm jumping ahead. And me and my wife just met with some people yesterday. Ben loved to work out. He's real into fitness and lifting and everything. And so our goal is, if the Holy Spirit wants it to be, is what I mostly pray for, is to open a gym for recovering addicts in Mansfield, and then create a culture around that, or community, I should say. We can do other things. So we think we're real close. I'm trying to get the physical space, and we got a few people involved that knew Ben. In fact, his sponsor and a place he was at, the guy there. So we're and my wife, who's really, you know, just kind of almost become a hermit because it's been hard, you know, to get out. And she said, if we do this, I'm going to be there. And so she went yesterday, and she was so lifted up. And I think, I mean, I know I'm not saying I'm not a psychologist, but obviously, when you're helping others, and that's the big thing I started to say earlier, the humility and you know, to first say that my daughter was mentally ill was one of the most painful things before Ben died, and yet it's been one of the greatest blessings because now I feel like I get it, you know, and I had panic attacks when I was in college, and anyway, so we see the suffering, we see so many worse situations. And so I, you know, me and my wife have said, man, if there's any way that we could bring somebody else some kind of peace, especially, well, and I will tell you this, I mean, the drug dealer is in prison. I work with the FBI. But our main goal, and this is the other big thing, is knowing the true enemy. You know, it's not that drug dealer. It's Satan. And we really pray for his soul and the other people that are struggling in this. And, I mean, he was getting his feet cut off from diabetes, you know, when you do the drugs, I've seen it, the limbs missing and stuff like that. It's so horrific. So, you know, we just feel really blessed, you know, to have, well, I guess to go back to my original point, sorry, I'm rambling on, but to have that faith and that belief and that Ben's okay, it frees you to go out and then do these, rather than sitting in your own, you know, sorrow, which we do get in. I mean, it hits you for sure, but anyway, I'm rambling. I don't know what the original question was.
No, it's great. And I mean, and to be as transparent about this is tough because no matter how many people try to reduce the stigma, there's still a stigma from people, from organizations out there. So just having this conversation and you sharing that, I mean, when you brought up the venture in Mansfield, I literally just got chills because it's so awesome and so many levels above what somebody might think that we'd be capable of doing. It's like, okay, no, if we can do this, we're helping people health-wise, and we're giving people a place to hang out, and maybe you bring a church element, and there's groups, and and to have that is when I say at the beginning and end of the show of wanting to help 3 billion people, that these crazy goals that we have, that we think that if we don't have those, then we're limiting ourselves, and we're only on earth for a finite amount of time. So what do we want to spend our time doing? And when I had to accept my mental illnesses in plural, that was one of the hardest things. But once, kind of to your point, once you do it and you just accept it and say, hey, this is just a part of who I am, and yeah, there might be medication. I don't want to take it, but maybe that's part of what I need. Maybe talking to a counselor or a priest. Maybe those are just things that I need. I need to get over myself and let somebody else that has the keys to the kingdom really take the wheel.
Yeah, that's awesome. You make me think of a couple of things, and this will relate to business and this. One of the first things, I grew up, my dad worked in a factory. We came from a pretty meager thing. And I'll never forget, the numbers aren't going to matter. I remember, I just want to make $35,000 a year. That was like my goal or something. And I'm at this company early on, and my buddy goes, why can't you make 50? And I was like, I don't know. It was the stupidest thing. I'm already done with college and everything. And I'm like, I never thought of it. I guess I'm the only one preventing this from happening. I could do this, I guess. And that changed everything. I started reprogramming my mind, listening to tapes and all this stuff. Well, just to your point, it's no different now. You're doing this, if this gym thing happens. And I think a key thing is having the ultimate humility. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm going to go try to do it. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, and we did it's called Lucas Community Center. It's a faith-based community center in Lucas, the town we live. Very similar thing. That's a whole story I can tell you, but it's a faith. It's to bring people together in relationship. And this is before Ben even. This was more related to the marriages, broken families, and the community in that, and bringing virtue. One of the things, I'll jump around a little bit, but these are the key points of this journey. So having those panic attacks when I was younger, I remember that was horrifying. I remember I thought I was dying when it first happened. So it's one of my personal experiences, I guess, with something close to this. But the one that really hit me, and I know it had to be the Holy Spirit, could have been.
Oh, I don't mean to cut you off. We're getting close on time. Okay. So if it's okay with you, we could close this episode and go ahead and film a second episode. Oh, you're able to share, because I don't want to cut you off from what you're sharing, because it's so important, and our viewers and listeners, we owe it to them to give the whole story and those experiences.
All right, if you want an encore, sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Thank you, our viewers, our listeners, for joining us on this episode of the Voices for Voices TV show and podcast. In studio, our guest, Mr. Bill Zirzow, has joined us for this part 1. Why don't you come back next week and check out part 2. So until next time, I'm Justin Allen Hayes, founder and executive director of Voices for Voices, and please be a voice for you or somebody in need.